But the hard part is learning a company really well takes a lot longer time than that. Takes a lot longer time than that. And let me go to the PowerPoint to discuss that a little bit more. So this is what we call, when we try to actually value a company, we have to do something called fundamental research. Fundamental research. And that concept is something that people on Wall Street spend a lot of time. They spend their whole day, buildings and buildings of people spend their whole day trying to do fundamental research. And what does that mean? Well, it's the type of research you do to forecast future cash flows. You know, we sat here in Apple and we said, are they going to shrink? Are they going to grow? Are their margins going to go up and their margins going to go down? You know, how much will they shrink by? How much will they grow by? All these things are really important. And most importantly, what's the risk? What's the risk to those numbers? Is it very unlikely? Is it very likely? Is there absolutely no risk that we're going to have a downside expectation? And this is really tricky. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing that I wanted to point out is Phil Fisher's book, Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits. And I always keep a copy of it within kind of 10 feet of me because it's probably the best book ever written, I think, on this concept of fundamental research. It's not the best investing book ever, but it's a great book with respect to fundamental research. And the first few chapters kind of teach you how to research a company. And he coined a term that's not used very much anymore. It's an old word, but he coined a term called scuttlebutt. Scuttlebutt. This is how you spell scuttlebutt. And scuttlebutt is literally kind of, it sort of means the talk or the rumors about a company. And it meant that if you heard that the company had, you know, a bad reputation, for instance, or that it was overzealous in how it sold products, or that it had a reputation for not paying people well, or whatever it is, scuttlebutt is kind of the talk, if you will. And you have to do quite a bit of that kind of research. And in modern times, in the old days, it was different ways to do it. Now with the internet, it's actually a lot easier to do quite a bit of that research yourself, which is kind of neat. So I would encourage you to read Phil Fisher's book, and we'll do that for Apple a little bit. I'll sort of read out a few pages of it, and then we'll sort of actually try to follow some of the guidelines in the book. And this is a book recommended by Warren Buffett and many others. Again, I wouldn't take it for gospel, but I specifically think those few chapters where he talks about how to do some fundamental research, I think are pretty good, or as good as I've seen. There's some other checklists and things out there that are also good, but you know, after a while it becomes second nature. So what's the second way to do it? Well, management is part of Phil Fisher's approach, and I just pulled it out as a really important. Even if you don't read the Phil Fisher book, you have to get some kind of relationship going with management, whether you like management or you don't like management. So management of Apple is Tim Cook. Now how do we we're never going to meet Tim Cook, right? I mean, we're not friends with Tim Cook. We're not going to be friends with Tim Cook. We're not important enough as investors to be Tim Cook's buddy. But we can listen to conference calls. We can listen to Apple's conference call. Very few people do this. Even though it's very easy to do. You go to Apple's website, apple.com, go to the investor website, and here's their earnings call. You can actually just click and listen. And let's listen to a few minutes of it. And you can decide over time. I really like. Nice and embarrassing. The streaming audio feed is currently unavailable. Come on, Apple, get your shit together. That's almost laughable that the earnings call is not up. Well, let me go to my fail-safe Bloomberg here, and let me see if I can get that conference call myself. I'm sure there's another link. If anyone could get the link, I'd be very happy. But for now, let me try to find it. let's see what date their earnings call was. Isn't that annoying that it's down? Here it is. All right, so let's see what these. Typically, this video is not available. Why is this so difficult? Well, here's the transcript, but I want to listen to it. And here we go. Well, that's the Q3 earnings report.
Skip half your bill.
Break up with Smile. Move to Metro.
Welcome to this Apple Incorporated third quarter
at least
fiscal
what it
year
sounds like.
2015 earnings release conference call. Today's call is being recorded. At
We don't
this
want the
time, for
transcript.
opening
We wanna
remarks
hear
and
what it sounds
introductions,
like.
I would like to turn the call over to Nancy Paxton, Senior Director of Investor Relations. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Speaking first today is Apple CEO Tim Cook, and he'll be followed by CFO Luca Maestri. And after that, we'll open the call to questions from analysts.
So you can see here, you might not be able to talk to Tim Cook whenever you feel like it, but there's people that work at Apple that are investor relations people, and you could actually reach out to them. Reach out to Joan and Nancy. I mean, they're paid to talk to you. That's their job. That's their job, and you can see that they're on. They're on there, so you can email them and discuss it. Anyway, let's listen in a little more.
Please note that some of the information you'll hear during our discussion today will consist of forward-looking statements, including, without limitation, those regarding revenue, gross margin, operating expenses, other income and expense, taxes, and future business outlook. Actual results or trends could differ materially from our forecast. For more information, please refer to the risk factors discussed in Apple's Form 10-K for 2014.
So one of the things that I think makes a lot of sense to mention now is that when we think about these discount rates, let's open them all back up. Let's open this back up. When we think about these discount rates, we say, what discount rate do we want to use for Apple? And remember, we're going to have the same model, a similar model. We're going to have a similar model for Microsoft. We're going to have a similar model for IBM. We're going to have a similar model for Facebook, for LinkedIn, for all of its other industry competitors. And we're going to have to decide on discount rates for those companies.